party people, welcome to the channel. I'm the self-proclaimed Blue Dragon, and this week it's part 3 of my mini-series, or now it's becoming a full series, The Origins of Dark Horse. This week I'm talking about Manga Mania. Y'all realize this had to have happened at some point, right? Warning to new viewers, Dark Horse is not safe for work, and it is targeting an adult audience, and by extension, these videos are not for kids. In the background, I'm inking an image I sketched while I was at Con Alt Delete in 2019. It's of Lady Kandapa and her lover Soma from the Clamp series Rig Veda, which I'm gonna talk about later in the video. So many of my fellow anime fans are around my age. They're in their mid to late 30s, and like me, we aren't really like the first wave of anime fans. There are definitely connoisseurs who predate us. I would consider the first wave to not even be the people watching Speed Racer. I would say the people in the 80s who were like getting the OVAs and stuff of that nature, but I would consider myself second wave anime fan. But like many people around my age, Sailor Moon was their first official anime, at least what we consider anime here in the West. I'm going to be excluding things like Speed Racer and Superbook. Nobody even knows what Superbook was. It's really bad, you guys. I'm also not going to be talking about the Rankin and Bass films, which were of course influential to me as a child because I watched things like The Hobbit, The Return of the King, The Last Unicorn, and The Flight of Dragons. All those things. Oh my god, The Flight of Dragons especially. These were animated by Japanese artists, but like in the case of Rankin and Bass and Superbook, they were created for Western companies and are kind of, in a way, seen more through a Western lens, so I'm not gonna really be talking about them. That's why I consider Sailor Moon to really be the first anime that I watched. But it aired, I can't tell you the exact date. I want to say that it was around 97? Probably a little before 97, actually, if truth be told. But I used to get up early at 6:30 a.m. to watch it during the week. I thought, my sister's still in bed. I have an older sister. I looked up to her so much. I still do. But I didn't want her making fun of me for watching what I thought was, so different that maybe I'd get made fun of. But apparently Channel 43, which was also Fox, they aired it at like 5:30, like an hour before I woke up, and one time we crossed paths on our ways, her having watched Sailor Moon and me going to watch it, and we found out that we were both keeping it secret from each other so we wouldn't make fun of each other, which I think is hilarious. I did get made fun of for watching Highlander though. That cartoon was bizarre. Very surreal. But at any rate, Sailor Moon was so influential to me. It was right up my alley. It was fantasy, it was mystery, magic, romance, action, friendship, that damned catchy theme song that I still love, but I actually prefer, believe it or not, I'm kind of a weeb. I like the Japanese version better than the English version, having finally heard the Miracle Romance song. But I became a massive fan of Sailor Moon, and you can just imagine my delight when strolling through the sci-fi fantasy section of our local Hastings, which is now closed, and spying a bright neon pink cover. It stood out from all the other fantasy books and sci-fi books because it was like neon colored, and it read in big blue letters, Sailor Moon. I was so delighted. I'd even go so far as to say I was giddy when I found it, because by that point I don't recall if Sailor Moon was still on TV, so I just thought it was a normal comic book that had been flipped left to right. So I bought it. It was the pocket mix by what would later be called, or maybe it was called and it was just like the specific brand, but it was by Tokyo Pop. It had been translated by I think by them. So I was so excited because it filled the Sailor Moon size hole in my heart. Now, because Hastings is kind of a weird store, they had some new books, some used books. They didn't get every single Sailor Moon, or somebody else was buying it too, so I didn't get to read the actual full series by Takeuchi until they re-released it. But since I just flew through Sailor Moon after I finally got what they had at Hastings, I wanted more. Enter the massively popular, Word of Wednesday, prolific manga super team Clamp. Hastings started carrying a 4-volume series called Wish, which was by them, And while it was enjoyable, I would definitely not say it's their strongest piece. It was fun, but it's definitely not my favorite. Most people know Clamp from Cardcaptor Sakura. Some people know them from Chobits. Some people know them from Magic Knight Ray Earth. I like that series. One of my readers on Comic Fury also loves that series, the anime. So yeah, they were very popular in Japan, and they would eventually become popular in the US, but none of those series were my favorites. My favorite was their debut manga, Veda, and that's where Soma and Kendappa in the background come into play. So I don't like to get too much into my personal life, but I will say I was excited to find Sailor Moon and Veda because they actually had well-rounded, non-stereotypical homosexual couples, especially Veda. But Sailor Moon obviously had Michiru and Haruka, who, while not my favorite, I go back and forth between preferring Michiru and Setsuna. I like them both so much. But, I mean, of course, this is from a Western scope. I have no idea what the Eastern audience was viewing these couples as. But for me, in the US, it was just so refreshing to see couples that weren't just stereotypes, and they were treated seriously and weren't just the butts of some kind of joke. So I really appreciated that. And I also, as I learned more about Eastern art, especially Indian art, the androgyny of the characters in Veda, and later I got into a series called Sayuki by Minakure. But the androgyny is reflective of that which is seen in Indian statues and older, like ancient works of art. Buddha, Krishna, they're not necessarily always depicted masculine, and I loved that androgyny, and that from a Western standpoint, the non-stereotypical gender roles that these characters held, and that of course the artwork held. It was something that I've always been attracted to, and I mean I've always liked David Bowie too. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Mom, for turning me on to Bowie. But yeah, so Veda, as well as all my interest in Indian works, the diving into the Vedas, the Ramayana, the Bhagavad Gita, and that all kind of led to me being attracted to Minakure's Sayuki, which is a sci-fi fantasy version of the Journey to the West, which is embroiled in both Chinese religion, faith, and also Indian faith, Buddhism. It's very interesting, and that kind of influenced me and inspired me to create my own world that was influenced by real life religions and faith, but would be my own world, and it's not going to be what I want to kind of red herring lead people to think it is. Inuyasha, of course, was influential too, more so the art style. I've noticed that most of the manga series that I am a huge fan of, be it shoujo, be shonen, whatever it is, most of them were written by women artists or illustrated by women artists. And on some level, probably more a subconscious level for me personally, that really influenced me, because most Western comics, I don't like superheroes. Aside from like X-Men, I liked Storm and Rogue and Gambit. Most Western superhero comics I didn't really like. I did like Batman, the animated series, and I like to read some Batman, but I don't know, I was always more interested in like The Crow, Sandman, Why the Last Man, weird stuff like that, rather than the superhero Western comics. I mean, it isn't that I didn't like Western comics. Again, it's mostly like the Marvel and DC I was not very interested in. But anyway, while those influenced like the story of Dark Horse, there is one series that really made me take my comic seriously and made me feel like I could actually create something and share it with people. And that series was Full Metal Alchemist. But that, my friends, is another story for another video. Question of the week: do you have a manga or comic that inspired you to create? If so, what is it? Share that below. If it's something you really like, maybe once the libraries are open again, I can, start looking those up. I also want to once again give a huge thanks to my fantastic patrons. Words can't express my appreciation for your support. Anyone wishing to become a patron or donate can do so at any of the support links down in the description. I have one-time donation stuff too if you don't want to do the patron thing. Otherwise, please feel free to sub, and do the bell thing. Please keep taking care of yourselves and each other, folks. Peace and love. Fare you well, and keep on trucking.